UEFA are bringing in a cap, which means you can only spend 70% of your turnover on wages and transfers.
Yeah.
That seems more simple than this.
Well, that one's steeped in sustainability. Basically, if the objective of financial fair play was to make football sustainable, so that ultimately people could operate with a profitable football club, so it wasn't dependent upon the whims of individuals or the circumstances of people that own football clubs, right?
Yeah.
That's what financial fair play in principle was brought into. The other argument would be people saying it's to protect the cartel and to make sure that those in best positions stay in those positions. If you start anchoring it to TV revenue and suggesting that the maximum that can be spent is 4 times the minimum TV revenue, which TV revenue are we talking about? Are we talking about the TV revenue that comes in from the Premier League? Are we talking about the extra 150 million quid that probably Man City and Man United and other teams get from their European revenue streams? What are we talking about? But if we're talking about, let's just say for the purpose of simplifying it, that everyone can have 4 times the minimum amount of money that's paid to the bottom side in the Premier League, then that goes away from the idea that sustainability was part of the financial fair play, moves into the fact that the bottom team, if they so choose, can spend 400 million quid on wages, lose hundreds of millions of pounds per year. And if people are comfortable that that's the principle they want football to be run under, and football itself wants to be run that way, then okay, that's the principles. I've always railed against the idea, having owned a smaller club and been in that area where you think that people would suggest that I'm being disadvantaged by the cartel and the status quo maintaining its position. I never saw financial fair play as the embodiment of that. I saw it as a rationalising of the lunacy that was going on in football, which is basically people don't care what businesses cost. No other business would be run this way, which is we'll lose hundreds of millions of pounds and we don't care. And no other business has an ecosystem that is compromised by what other people do. So there has to be uniqueness about the way that football is operating. I'm absolutely in the camp of the Keir Jaraption argument about investment, the agent, about investment and not denying people the investment. But I'm also in a situation where the pyramid football itself, those at the top affect those at the bottom because of the drip down economics. This is the one part of that philosophy that actually works.
And this is what this is, isn't it?
Well, this
is what anchoring is.
This doesn't seem to me to be seeded in the same sentiments, and I don't understand the principles behind it and why it would be mooted as a solution. It might be mooted by certain people that have certain outlooks, but I can't work my way through that and say, well, I think it's particularly... Listen, these are all things that should be discussed. And there's no point. It's not like if you don't like someone's point of view, you shouldn't counsel them. They should be able to air it and then have their philosophies debunked.
You won't be surprised to hear, Simon, it's expected the top 6 clubs will push back in it. But you would think it would find favour with the so-called smaller
But I don't see why
ones.
the top 6 would be overly worried about it. Because again, if the maximum wage bill at this moment in time, the biggest wage bill in the Premier League is 380 million quid, and this is offering them an opportunity to go up to 400 million quid, and the broadcast deals get bigger, they'll be looking at the downside, suggesting that ultimately that if the broadcast deals get smaller, then they should be able to spend without constraints. But then it will be the same situation, because if we're talking about the rule of 70% of turnover, and the broadcast, Man United's turnover, say Man City's turnover is 600 million quid, right? Which is we've just seen recently. Right. Under the auspice of a 70% rule, they're able to spend somewhere between 350 and 420 million, depending on how much depreciation they've got on players, on a wage bill. So this does the same thing, except the 70% of turnover is seeded in a sustainability ideal. And the other clubs in the league that have lesser turnover will have the opportunity to retain profitability, but they won't be able to go to the situation where they can spend what Man City can spend.
You see, is this not just, it seems odd to say it, is this not just too creative for the Premier League to implement a salary cap linked to TV money? Here's the thing, let's keep it simple, and especially let's keep it simple for everybody who's listening. Why not introduce and debate today, why not debate a hard and fast cap to be brought in? Forget the TV money.
Because that debate doesn't need to happen, because it's already happened. That's already set in stone. That ideal has been introduced by UEFA and is expected.
That's only for clubs in European competitions.
Is it? Okay. Well, my understanding of the salary cap implementation for the 23-24...
Bring it into the Premier League and everybody in the Premier League.
Well, I had understood, and maybe that's wrong, that in 23-24 and 24-25 there's a need for all clubs to meet a certain level of ratio to turnover against wage spend. That's only for the clubs in Europe.
See, people listening to this, Mark, there's Danny, and I agree with you, Danny. Is it not simpler than this, Jim? Every team in the Premier League should be capped this same. Simple. I mean, we're doing this at different levels here. That's why there's going to be allegedly pushback from the Big Six.
Well, yeah, if you want something similar to American sports, where you've got the bottom team gets the draft and gets the best player, then you're unwinding the whole fabric of what football has become, and in terms of the bigger clubs naturally have bigger fan bases, bigger opportunities to generate revenue. And what you're suggesting is a complete and utter level. You're suggesting socialism, a form of communism, in football. And I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that having, again, been involved in a smaller club, I accept the parameters of needing to do things differently and better. There's a reason why Brighton at this moment in time are operating the way they're operating, because they know they need to be better. They know that they need... And there's also the drag and tag effect. There is no way that the Premier League sells around the world if Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham aren't roaring and continuing to perpetuate this wonderful brand imagery that's in the minds, and Newcastle will get added into that mix as well.
Sure.
So I do simply think that it's a percentage of turnover that should be deployed, and then you can get real effective ownership models like Brighton that can scout and do their jobs well and bring in players and enable the big football clubs to pay the price when these players are being plucked out of those football clubs.
It seems, Simon, that West Ham, David Sullivan suggested this to me before they won the Europa Conference League, before they knew they would stay in the Premier League.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.